So the bill passed on a lopsided vote of 352 to 65, but it faces an uncertain fate in the Senate. And joining us now to talk about this bill and much more is Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who is a co-sponsor of this legislation. Thanks so much for being with us here at Issue. Let's start with the basics. Congressman, why did you sponsor this bill?
Social media companies profit by keeping our kids hooked on their screens. And for the past decade, we've seen them corrode youth mental health. We've seen them decimate local journalism and platform disinformation. And we've seen them abuse their access to people's personally identifiable information, including by sharing it with the Chinese Communist Party in the case of TikTok. This bill is the first step to comprehensive social media regulation, because we've got to take on not just TikTok, but also Facebook and Twitter and Twitch and Discord and Snap to say to them, the era of you monetizing our kids' attention spans is over. We are going to fight back on behalf of families, and we're going to demand that you behave as responsible platforms as the most influential media companies in the world.
Well, we saw this past week what happened. We just played a soundbite in the words of one of your fellow congressmen, Maxwell Frost, the first Gen Z member of the House. He said that this could hurt President Biden's standing with young voters. Do you think this could have a backlash against the president's efforts to get reelected?
I don't like to make public policy based on opinion polls. I think we have to do what's right for the American people, and what's right for the American people is to fight back against the corporate greed of social media companies, all of them, not just TikTok. But I will say that what is even more threatening in the long run for Gen Z's engagement with our political system is to have their political ideology cohered through the lens of an algorithm that is owned by the Chinese Communist Party and its anti-Western ideology.
So to that point, the bill doesn't ban TikTok, right? That we keep saying that, we keep hearing that. It doesn't ban TikTok. I heard a parent describe how his minor child received a DM or a message from TikTok urging him to contact Congress. And when you think about it, it could be described as a foreign entity contacting American children to change American laws. And it's not really something I thought about until he articulated. Is there a messaging problem with this bill? We're talking about banning it instead of messaging children with foreign ideology.
It's a great point, and that effort by TikTok is a case in point of the kind of influence we do not want to cede to an adversary and to a company owned by that adversary. It definitely boomeranged within the chamber. The members of the Energy and Commerce Committee that voted on that bill voted 50-0 to pass it on to the House floor, I think in part because they saw that influence campaign. And I got calls to my office. We had a call from one young individual who threatened suicide if TikTok was banned. And I hear that message, and I thought to myself, what has Congress allowed to happen over the last decade to our kids' mental health and sense of self, where even the threat of banning one of the social media apps is enough to drive a child to consider self-harm? We have to put families back in the driver's seat. We have to protect family time and push back on screen time.
So, challenge in the Senate, I mean, do you think it's going to make its way through the Senate at this point?
The margins are big enough that it's unignorable by the Senate. Now, what they're going to do remains to be determined. Let's be candid here. Big tech has massive lobbying muscle on the Hill. I've put forward a bill just this week to raise the age of internet adulthood, for example, from 13 to 16. They're already joining forces to try to attack that. They're absolutely going to send their lobbyists up and down the hallways of Washington, D.C., and lawmakers are going to have to answer to whether they're going to listen to lobbyists or they're going to listen to the families in their district.
I want to talk about another fight in Congress. You've signed that discharge petition that we're talking about in the House, a move aimed at forcing House Speaker Mike Johnson to kind of put that bill that funds Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan on the House floor. Where do you see this going? Are you optimistic that it can make its way through the House at this point? I mean, obviously the Senate passed it in a big margin.
This national security bill funds our allies who are fighting on the front lines of the free world, Israel, Taiwan, and most critically and urgently, Ukraine. I think it's important to remind the American people that while the price tag is $60 billion, the majority of that money is spent here at home. Massachusetts, for example, has gotten more than $1 billion in funding for our own R&D and manufacturing ecosystems to send those munitions and material to Ukraine. This is good for American jobs. This is good for American industry. And it's good for our Ukrainian allies, because the lesson of the 20th century is dictators who promise war in Europe need to be stopped. They cannot be appeased. I think the American public understands that. But the problem is Speaker Johnson has submitted himself to Donald Trump and Donald Trump's obsession with Vladimir Putin. And we have got to circumvent the Speaker's will now through the discharge petition.
All right, on Israel, I want to ask about this. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, big supporter of Israel, highest-ranking Jewish lawmaker in the Congress, came out last week to criticize Prime Minister Netanyahu on his stance on the war, and he called for new elections there. Do you agree with him?
If I were a member of the Knesset, I would not be part of the Netanyahu coalition. I'd be trying to push for elections. And I don't subscribe to the prime minister's assertion that they can't hold elections during wartime. The United States held elections during wartime on multiple fronts, and they were successful. But I'm not a member of the Knesset. I'm a member of Congress, and one democracy should respect another democracy's right to call for elections when the people decide.
So was it a bad idea for Senator Schumer to come out last week?
You know, Senator Schumer has been such a strong ally of Israel and has such wisdom and sophistication in how he has helped support the U.S.-Israel relationship that, I'm not going to sit here and lecture him on how he's supposed to approach this. What I will say is that from my perspective, the United States and Israel have a strong bond built on democratic values, and one of those values is the people are sovereign.
All right. Well, talking about voting and people voting for folks, on a lot of open mics after the President's State of the Union, you could hear Democrats basically not only just giving a sigh of relief, but saying, yay, look at, you did it. That puts that to rest. But the president is still behind in some of the swing states. What do you think Joe Biden and the Joe Biden campaign need to do in those important swing states to change the narrative, to tout the accomplishments they have had?
Continue to drive a sharp contrast between his vision of progress and possibilities, Trump's vision of anger and regression. Talk about freedom, democracy, and a strong middle class. This president has had a successful first term, and a lot of Americans don't know that we empowered Medicare to negotiate prices, don't know that we invested in infrastructure and in manufacturing. So there's a lot to talk about. And then also, we have got to thwart these third-party candidates. Robert F. Kennedy, number one. As we saw in 2016, as we saw in 2000, third-party candidates can be spoilers. RFK is absolutely a stalking horse for MAGA. His biggest donors are all MAGA donors, and he needs to be contested.
How do you think you're going to do that, though? How do the Democrats make that? I mean, I've seen people say a Kennedy candidacy hurts both the Republicans and hurts the Democrats. How do you portray somebody who is a blank slate for a lot of people, but has that Kennedy name?
Absolutely. So first, I think to your point is analysis state by state about out of whom he's actually taking votes, right? Because it's not totally clear. He's got this anti-vaxxer, conspiratorial, deep state mindset that might appeal to Trump voters, but he's got the Kennedy name that could appeal to Democratic voters. So I think you're right to question who's it's going to hurt. So state by state analysis. And then in those states where it could really be the margin against Joe Biden, aggressive messaging about who is supporting Kennedy. And the answer is MAGA.
All right, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, a lot to talk about, obviously, going on at Capitol Hill, and we'll be talking to you, I'm sure, throughout the year as well. Thanks for being with us.
Appreciate coming in.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
You too.